Yes, we're back in effect. Wow. Yeah, just as I reflect on that fight last night, getting it out of my system. Yeah, remember that line from when David Hay and Derek Chisora had a clash, and Derek Chisora said he glassed me because I tell you, man, Wardley, Fabio Wardley's face was a hot mess, man, a hot mess. But yes, we pivot into the world of show business. We spoke about the BAFTAs and the review of the BAFTAs and what had taken place. And now it's time to look at this comedian called Drewski. I've mentioned him a few times. He's done some really, I was about to say, paradoxical serious. That's the whole point. It's not supposed to be serious, right? It's funny, right? Humor, funny, but his comedy raised serious issues or really serious talking points. And maybe that's something about the role of the comedian in society, right? It's older than the ancient tradition, comedy, from the time of the court jester. Remember, the court jester could say things. He could speak truth through power, but because of his humor, he could get away with raising things. And maybe it was an element of ridiculing the king or the queen. But it played a role, more of an educative role, right? Because the king can get caught up he can, be up his own what's it, right? And so it's a sobering, the story of the king has no clothes, right? The king is naked, right? Because he was sold invisible clothes and nobody dared to tell him the truth that the clothes didn't exist, so he was walking around naked. But the moral of the story is that when you live in a society and you can't receive, you put yourself in a situation or you put yourself in a class, but for whatever reason you can't receive feedback, right? It means that you run the risk of going over the edge of a cliff because you can't take talking to, or you're beyond being addressed, isn't it? So the court jester had played a powerful role, and that we live in a society now where we have issues. Oh, I say a society now. Human beings have always had to deal with things that relate to our mental health, right? Things that we found difficult to discuss. But the good comedian can raise issues that might be to do with despair, right? Things that relate to our anxiety, right? Things that even relate to subjects like death, right? The comics can push the envelope. They are the canary in the coal mine, they say, because when the comics are being censored, that tells you that free speech in that society is on its, it's on its last legs or whatever, right? It's an evidence of, boy, you can't even really speak your mind anymore. We don't really believe. We like the slogan free speech because it makes those in power and those of us in the society who still want to believe in those principles, it makes us feel good. But the truth is something else. That means that we're starting to live in a less of a democracy and more of a dictatorship, right? So less and less things can be said. And we have to think about that in terms of who and what can be criticized in a country like Britain and how much. Yes, we might enjoy more free speech in other places, but is it truly what it represents in the Constitution and the Magna Carta and those documents that, the political class will hold up to say this is why we are more civilized than certain parts of the developing world, or in the third world and the second world. But we're top, we're part of the elite, right? Does it really match up to what those people are saying it does? Well, we can always question that. But yeah, the comics, they help us to deal with a lot of difficult things like, even things like failure. But yeah, so Drewski, he's been on fire, right? His stock has really rose this year, at least in my opinion. But I'd say that he's going viral every time he drops a video. It's kind of like there's a bit of a consensus. And he did one some time ago earlier this year, and it was about the manipulative preacher, but it was a religious preacher. So there was a little bit of religious iconography or a little bit of religious imagery and posturing in the skit. So some people took offense, but I don't really think it was a stab against the church as much as it was against manipulative pastors. And then he's done one again, which pushed the boat out with Charlie Kirk's widow and her vulgar capitalist cashing in type of energy. And that one pushed the boat out because people were saying the white face, he's, you know, like, is that okay? And, you know, then we went on to see Charlie Slough tried teeth, pirate him style. Y'all remember when I said pirate him style, right? He teethed a little bit, I think, of the energy of Drewski and tried to, you know, use his promo material and put on an Afro wig, and that went wrong. We discussed that last week. But yeah, getting back to Drewski, he's come up with a new clip where he's really pushed out the envelope a little bit more, and he's talking about, or he addresses the issue of black actors from the UK in Hollywood and the role they've been playing in Hollywood over the last few years, because there is so many, you know, big productions that I've seen before. And I'm saying this is after Idris Elba went to America and was a part of the hit series from Baltimore. Why is that name of that series gone? But you know the series I'm talking about, The Wire, right? Idris starred in The Wire, and there were people even back then, obviously we do with it, but there were people in the US that didn't know that Idris was a black Brit, right? Obviously they knew he was black, but they didn't know he was from England, right? And since then, right, there has been a wave of films and series, and I'm talking like high level stuff, Hollywood stuff, right, where it's been starred by black Brits have held space. And so there has been some resentment building in black America, quite possibly understandably so, to be fair. And people have made comments, different actors have made comments. Some have said, you know, they should be giving those roles to black Americans. I've got my views. I'll be so fascinated to hear your views, but I've got my views, but I'm gonna do a little bit of a breakdown. But the thing what sticks with me is the fact that there were people that I didn't know they were from England, right? So they fooled me, if that's the right word. Right, I didn't know, and I still keep getting surprised. I was watching some stuff doing the research, and there's films I've watched recently. I'm like, wait, that guy's English as well. They're saying these guys in British theatre. There's a series called Snow. I never knew the main character, Mr. Idris. I can't remember his first name. He won awards for that show because it's a really good show. I didn't know that he was British. I didn't know that his antagonist in the show was British as well. And so it raised a lot of awareness on my part. And it seems that there is some resentment, but Drewski's basically made a skit or a sketch raising a number of issues. The thing I like about the power of what comedians have is that they don't have to be specific. It's not a 10-point manifesto. People will draw what message they want to, right? And is he definitively saying this? Is he just saying is it basically, oh, he's having a go at the black Brits for coming over and stealing all our jobs? Is a comedy about those people with that kind of mentality, right? And is there a deeper conversation to be had about Pan-Africanism or black nationalism or what's the word I'm looking for now? In terms of like Malana Karenga and the self-determination, Kuchagi Leah, like these different principles that we're supposed to believe in if we're Afrocentric or Pan-Africanist or black nationalist, or at least have some grounding in those philosophies, even if you want to wear that label, but like you're influenced by that type of thought. Yeah, so the comedian hasn't been quite definitive in what he's saying, but people are pulling different messages. Some people are upset, feel like they're the victims of an attack. Some people feel like, yeah, get him, Drewski, you're an arse. What is a comedian really saying? But yeah, I want to share a little piece from the skit, and then we'll take it from there, you know. But remember, it's a skit based on an actor that is starring in a slave movie from the US.
You promise you go with me, right?
Rudy, stop talking like that. You ain't going to no big city. Matt's gonna let you.
Yeah, I'm going with or without you.
Rudy, stop talking like that. Stop. Hey, what are you niggers doing over there?
We gotta get out of here.
Hey, what are you doing?
And cut! Fantastic. I need more American slave. Okay?
Like struggle.
Yeah, the struggle.
Like sort of like the dialogue, like the back and forth banner.
Absolutely. Yes.
See, this role was sort of a bit cheeky. I got a little bit out of my comfort zone, you know. Doing.
Like, he's already funny, isn't he? Like, because who in England talks like that? Where is this accent from? You know what I'm saying? But that's part, to me, that's part of funny. Like, it's a caricature as opposed to it's not an impersonation of a specific person. It's a sending up of, isn't it? Sorry to stop it. It's very short. My bad.
During the filming of this role in this character, I felt oppressed, like an American slave, like a lot of struggle. I studied the art.
A fantastic turnout on the red carpet tonight. And just arriving, we have Samson Dubois at the American Guild Awards.
Samson, you look great tonight.
How hard was it for you to change your accent?
As a little boy from Manchester, I think, I struggle a bit with the dialect, right? But to really get into character for this quite astonishing role that I took on, to say the least, I put it all on the line.
All right, 3, 2, 1, action.
I'm telling you, nigga, if you fuck with my shit, I'll kill you, nigga. You'll be fucked up. Fuck.
Family.
Nigga, ain't no fucking family in this shit. We not family, nigga. Fuck family.
Hey, cut, that's the one.
That was stunning. Great performance. Working with a good London boy, and I bother him all the time. I had a call with the director. It was quite quintessential to the role and great character development behind it. I put this fucking bullet in your head, nigga. I laugh because I'm penniless and a bit quite surreal.
Samson Dubois. Samson, yo, who's the girl?
What's your next
Samson
movie?
Dubois.
What's your
Samson
next
Dubois.
movie?
Yo, do you think your British accent gets you all the black roles in America?
Come on, bro. Are you serious, bro?
Do you think you're better than them?
Better than who, bro? Black people.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Classic. It's a classic already. It's new, but yeah, that one is going to stand the test of time because there's a big conversation to be had, right? There's a big conversation to be had. Oh, and ECR family, there is, or should I say the listenership, the crew, right? There's a new chat room. If you go on the website, there is a new chat room that you can participate in real time, you know, and the team will let me know the messages the team will let me know the messages because I can't access that WhatsApp. I can't access the website in that way. But yeah, leave a comment on the website and I'm going to get back at you. But yes, main topic. The black Brits are taking all of our jobs and Samuel Desbordes. Do you know what I mean? Because it was quintessential. It was all quintessential. Who talks like that in England? I'm not too sure, but it was very good. Drewski's raising those uncomfortable conversations because on one level, right, there is the irony. The BAFTA award showed you, right, or gave you a flavor. It wasn't evidence, but there's a flavor like that black British talent in terms of the performing arts isn't ogled over or received that great. We don't tend to in the UK see too much flipping series that we feel as black Brits. When you talk amongst the people, the consensus that represents us, I think one of the, unfortunately or fortunately, two of the best pieces that we've seen in recent years that have really, or say recent years, but really carried, one of them is Adolescent with Ashley Waters, who did a phenomenal job. And linked to Ashley Waters again is the series Top Boy, which is, I've rewatched the whole series recently to do an analysis of it, right? And yeah, while it's problematic, it does say certain things. But how many pieces in the black UK can we say? How many stars here that have starred in things in the UK where we say, yeah, that went far, that was like doing big numbers, it was doing stuff internationally, right? Not too much. So I'm figuring just like how our parents may have left different countries in the Caribbean or left different countries in Africa, different parts of Africa, to come to a place like the UK where there's more opportunity. We live in a world where capitalism is king. So I don't know what the black actors in the UK are supposed to do. They're supposed to keep scrounging around and doing little cameo pieces or tiny little pieces in EastEnders or hoping for Emmerdale to give them a call or something like. Do you know what I mean? To be that weird kind of black character that nobody black knows anybody like them. That you don't carry characters you think, I can't relate to this person. Who there was that one or two black characters that they're not black. They're just dark-skinned white people. You know? There's nothing black about the character apart from their phenotypical attributes in these British, in a lot of British art, right? In performing art. So are they supposed to stick around for those parts, or they should go or naturally go where pastures are more green? So that's one thing that comes to mind. The second point is that within this dialogue about the artist, etc., and who's should have the role or shouldn't have the role, is that a lot of these people I didn't know weren't really from Baltimore or weren't really from Philadelphia, etc. But even the people from Baltimore or Philadelphia or whatever, or other Americans, other black Americans, found out later on that they were actually British of African or Caribbean extraction, right? And they were outraged then after they found out. So if you're acting, isn't that what acting is? Like, can Sean Connery play, you know, the captain of a Russian submarine if he can do the accent? I mean, I can't tell if he's not Russian or not. Apart from that, I know he's Sean Connery from Scotland. But isn't it? That's the whole point. People are pretending. They're not really tending to be that thing, right? I can understand, and I'll probably come back to this. I can understand people's sensitivities when it comes to things like historical characters. Like, how would I feel as somebody from part Jamaican background and saying there's a film about Nanny, and we're going to get somebody from some other country, America, or Black America, or somewhere else to play like Nanny or Paul Bogle? I might feel some type of way. I might not even really care, really. Like, do you know what I mean? Who knows? But it's going to raise a question, and I know some people will care. I remember that film, what's it called again? The Bob Marley film. And there's a social media person called Pretty Dunn. She was talking about the Bob Marley film. She's Jamaican and she was outraged that guy that played the part. She was saying, they ain't got no Jamaican. They must have some brown dread that could have played the part, man. Like, she was incensed. But her conversation and her points, valid not, or we agree or disagree, is cool. But it goes to show, right, the people that made the film, they picked that guy, that actor from the UK. I think he's of Trinidad and extraction. He's Caribbean regardless, right? But they picked the brother to play the part, not because of where he was from, but they felt his competencies and his skill set, we needed somebody like that. Somebody with the experience, right? There's funders that put their money up for the film. There's funders that put their money up for the film, and they influence the decision. It's like the board of directors in a company. You might have the director that's making a film and the producer. Those are two powerful individuals, but there's people who put their money up to make the films, right? And they got some influence or say so when their money's on the line. So they're saying the Bob Marley film is a biopic, but if you want to really know what Bob Marley had to say, go and watch a flipping documentary, bruv, or go and read a book. But this is entertainment for the global market. It's not a Jamaican film. Jamaica makes brilliant films like Smile Orange and Dancehall Queen, and don't even get me started about The Harder They Come, right? Don't even get me, like, they make classical. That's for the people. That's for that. That's a film that is made for the culture, by the culture. That's a different ballgame. This, we're taking Bob Marley, but he's international. He's a global icon, and we're doing the global thing. We want people in Belgium to go and see it. So you don't want to get the patois too authentic, or they can't, you know what I mean? Like, come on, mate. It's money, innit? It's a different thing, right? So, point being that funding and money takes a precedence in this thing. If the person is seen as competent and skillful, right, and do the role properly, then that's the reason why they're going to get the part. There's an argument to say that, or some people have been saying that British actors have been favoured in some big roles because they have more range. They've been taught formally they've come through things like theatre, right? And they've been to acting school, right? And so they know how to enunciate, and they've had, voice coaches and accent coaches and things of this nature, right? So they have a full range and they can get into character in different ways that sometimes Hollywood, when it's lent on black talent, which America has just a plethora in it, like it's just, come on, let's just be honest, in it, like they got so much talent. But if you think about a lot of people that are big box office stars in terms of black American actors, at least amongst the men, a lot of them man are like ex-rappers. Like, no, that's not to say that an ex-rapper can't be an actor or can't be a good actor, but maybe Will Smith's training and he had to catch up to speed because people pumped money to get him there, help him get there, because obviously he can do the numbers. But it's not going to be the same as somebody who started out as a little kid, 11 years old, 12 years old, going to Talia Conti and then going to the Brits and going to different drama, going through the theatre and live performance. They've gone through a different Shakespeare, and they're thespians with a TH, right? They've gone for a different route. So some are saying it's the actor versus the film star, and that some of these guys are picked because when they're on screen, the girls will go mad. Right, they got a fan base from their music world. There's crossover appeal, and they already come with a fan base, and so it's to do with the numbers. So it's a different thing. And I've heard one American actor talking about Hollywood has phases. There was a time when they was obsessed with getting rappers in films, and those black Americans that were classically trained were getting irate about it. But now they've moved on to the British classically trained, and still there are big roles where the black American actor isn't getting. And what will be interesting, because I'm a man that's led by numbers, is that I'm gonna first of all give out the live link again. You know it though, 07826 115543. But yeah, what will be interesting is the numbers, because there's something about perception. Like, if a certain number of black Brits hold significant roles in big films, Judas, the Judas Factor, Fred Hampton's Life, Selma, Dr. King's Life, like, so those are significant cultural roles in it, like they're icons. There's certain people that as part of the black American struggle. Yeah, those roles being caught by black Brits, right? That might be another perception of they're giving them all the roles, but is that the case, or is it just more a perception? Like, if you looked on a percentage wise, it ain't that significant, but it's just high profile, right? It's just high profile. So that's one thing. The other thing is, even a film like Get Out, right? Black British lead, right? But that wasn't that the directors of that, a black guy, Keenan Peele, the comedy duo that recently split up. But those two brothers, two biracial black American brothers that do a lot of great things in the comedy. That film did good numbers. It was a really successful film. I think the brother did a great job. It got the message across, right? But that was a black producer, right? So what does that say? Because there are some people saying that there's some type of conspiracy going on in Hollywood, and it's the displacement of black American culture, that there's an agenda being set, right? And that these people are not from black America. They can't play black America. They don't really and truly understand black American culture to that level. But there's a deeper agenda to get the FBA, the Foundation of Black American, to kind of like undermine them, right? I'm not in a position to agree or disagree, but I do know that sometimes black people, wherever you find us, right? When I use that word black as a political black, not talking necessarily in the motherland where it's populations of 99.9% people, indigenous people. I'm talking about like in the Western world and places like the Caribbean and that. Sometimes we can fight ghosts and phantoms, like stuff that isn't there. We can wild out and fight our own shadow at times when, we kind of sometimes have a little bit of they're out to get us itis when there isn't really nothing else going on more than like, you know what? The trend might be to do with money more than anything else. That these guys, They come classically trained. They often can do the job. The people who are putting the money up like the idea of it. And you know what? They might be doing it a bit, might be doing it at more competitive rates, innit? You know what I mean? They're happy to be here kind of thing. You know how it works, right? Immigrants, immigration, you know that affects capitalism. People come from somewhere with less opportunity. They're willing to do the same job as somebody born and bred, been there a few generations, if not been there forever. They're willing to do it cheaper because it's like it's a come up for them. So there is that element again. Capitalism raises its head. The number is 07-826-11-5543, right? Or is it that they ain't really that better? The Black Brits ain't particularly better. They're not better, they're not worse, but there's just a prestige bias that England, being the mother country to America, they you know, we've got the king here and stuff like that, and Buckingham Palace, and there's certain regal and timeless buildings and things that come from the UK, and that America is kind of Anglo-British, isn't it? It's like, you know, the white people that run, or powerful people in America, the powerful white people that are in, you know, positions of power generationally, they tend to trace their bloodline back to Britain. Half of the presidents have got Irish, right? And I don't know what Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, etc. I'm gonna get into that, but you know, there's this neck of the woods, right? They tend to have, they trace their bloodlines back to this side, right? So there might be like a prestige bias that, although these guys, these men and women, these young men and these young women that go to ply their trade on the open market, although they're black, they're from Britain. And so they've come from different establishments that the Americans in Hollywood, they check for that. They believe, yeah, they got something to offer. And so there is that element to the discussion as well. But I have a question. I want to pose a question. And you can make your point in a chat room, drop us a comment in the WhatsApp group, or wherever you like. Yeah. But get at me. But let me know, is it a worthy politicized discussion, or is it a storm in a teacup? It's a comedian doing jokes. Not more to discuss. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see. Or does this raise a deeper issue, a deeper socio-political, cultural issue, worthy of serious consideration and dialogue? I want to play you something from yesteryear. Tell me if you know who this is.
Which has now become an independent country. You no longer have citizenship of the United Kingdom colonies.
No, we gotta get this one. We gotta get this one right. We gotta get this one right, man. This one has to get right.
Paired.
Which has now become an independent country. You no longer have citizenship of the United Kingdom colonies.
Well, I could die for the United Kingdom and colonies, can't I? You can put me out there as a front gunner to get me bleeding head blown off. I'm British then, yeah?
Yes, but you still become a British citizen. All you have to do is send a cheque, £200. Send it to me. I'll hurry it along because I know you want to go on holiday.
You don't understand, do you? The £200 has got nothing to do with it.
I appreciate your predicament.
Appreciate? You don't appreciate nothing. Where were you when the bullets started flying, eh? Hiding behind your desk, shitting yourself like the rest of your con. Well, I was out there, in the cold, in the dark, in the shit. I watched my mate, a man who saved my life, get his fucking leg blown off. Appreciate it.
Now, there's no prizes for the guests if you know which actor that is, but I'm gonna make it easy for you. It wasn't. I know you might be thinking initially that it was Crocodile Dundee or somebody from Australia, but it wasn't. It's a Black American actor. Let me make that easy for you. The number is 07826115543. 978-443. Give us a call. Let me know if this is a storm in a teacup or nothing to be seen. Yeah. So, that was Denzel Washington. Yeah, very own Oscar, as our very own is in that. I say that from a Pan-Africanist point of view. People getting a bit who's ours and all that stuff. You know what I mean? That was Denzel Washington in the film called Queen and Country, way back in the 80s. I remember back then being in certain circles, and I was around a few black actors from the UK, and they weren't overly impressed, because there was a kind of idea that there's people here that could have did that role. There's black Brits here that could have did that role. However, it was a bit like the Bob Marley biopic situation, where the people putting the money up for the film wanted somebody who had a reputation. I think Denzel had done some really good work on Broadway. He wasn't the legend he is now in terms of movies, but he was emerging, and like his name, he had shook the concrete on in terms of live performance in the US. So he was known, right? He was known. So over here they're thinking we need a black character to do a particular role, and so they hollered at your boy. They got Denzel in, a young Denzel. I mean, he's proved himself, but we all have to start from somewhere, and I'm going to tie it into what Les Brown says, isn't it? Like, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep pushing. That wasn't his finest hour, but it's part of his journey. And look at him now. So yeah, it's happened before in the reverse, but it doesn't happen as a trend. And so I can appreciate why. Some black Americans might have an issue with that. At least I think it's worthy of conversation, but you have to tell me if you think it is, or am I making a storm in a teacup, or you got an opinion. You might say, let the youths ride, and let the youths them do their thing, So yeah, couple messages from the chat room. Remember, yeah. Shout out to the ECR technicians. It's difficult for me to access, but if you run it through the WhatsApp, it will be good. It will be good if you take a photo. Yeah. I'm in full flight mode, so it's difficult for me to access. But yeah, I see one message that's been brought to my attention. I'm listening to the conversation, and I can't help feel like it becomes a bit divisive. The talent across the diaspora. So I don't really see why geography should matter. It should be skill and opportunity. That's a serious point. Let me read that again. I was listening to that conversation, and I can't help but feel it's become a bit divisive. There's talent across the diaspora, so I don't really see why geography should matter. It should be about skill and opportunity. Yes. Let me kind of like unpack that. That's a good point, because ultimately, in principle, it should be about that. That's what it should be. That's the fundamental thing, and the right man or woman for the role, they can do it comprehensively. We are putting up our money for the film, whoever the we is, and it's okay, right? Wherever this person comes from, they've done the accent, or they've got the look, or they've got the body language, or they've got the delivery, the depth, the range, whatever the acting skills that's required, they're doing the thing, right? And so we're content with that, the we being director, producer, funders, right? Geography shouldn't have a role to play with that, but yeah, there are some in the diaspora, some black Americans that would say there is more. It's more to do with the conspiracy, that there are powers to be in America that are trying to displace or make invisible black American, true, authentic black American culture, and they're saying it's about lineage. That this thing, FBA, foundational black American and stuff like that, there was another title they used, but it said descendants of slaves, and so people from the Caribbean still kind of like came in, to quote one of their champions, Tariq Nasheed, who said they were coming in the back door because they were saying they're the descendants of slaves, saying it like it ain't a fact, saying it like it was a kind of get out card or a get in card. But anyway, those type of individuals are saying it's about bloodline and heritage and stuff like that. You don't have that heritage in the United States. And yeah, I mean, that's their kind of argument. I think that's divisive, right? I think that's divisive. I kind of have to agree with our listener there. I think it's divisive, and it is about the best person for the job. Where I more would lean to, or what I would do is I'll do a thought experiment, and I'll think of ourselves as like Black Brits, and we have a legacy here, and maybe particularly people who are more associated or grew up around or descendants of directly the Windrush generation, right? And that whole great mass, migration that took place from people from different parts of the Caribbean coming to the UK. And I'm saying that I want you to work this thought experiment with me, and I want you to imagine that there is King Charles Trust Fund, and he has donated a ridiculous amount of money to tell that story, and it's going to include things like the Brixton riots or uprisings, depending on how you frame it, the Tottenham uprisings, right? The New Cross fire incident and the whole surrounding story with that. Saxon sound system is going to be in this movie, or a replica of their triumph across going to Jamaica and going to America, etc. There's going to be a whole reggae dancehall section that's going to replicate Coxsone sound system and Fat Man, and it's going to do some stuff that's connected to Manchester and the black roots in Manchester and Leeds, and it's a big film like that, and there's a wicked set of money that's been put on the table to do that film, right? It's going to be historic, it's going to be legend, and then all the leads are Black Americans, right? Or from different parts of the diaspora or from the motherland, but there's no Caribbean. There's no Caribbean people, or none of the main stars or many main characters. I mean, as an African Caribbean person, how might that sit with you? Not just in the spirit of who's the best person for the job, but as in like, from a kind of cultural relevance point. How might that sit with you? Do you get it? So there is an element that I really appreciate, but I don't see the general argument. I agree with that listeners think that it is. I think generally speaking, it's divisive. It's anti-Pan-Africanist. It's what would Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton call that? That's counter-revolutionary, brother. That's counter-revolutionary. You know what I'm saying? But if it's specific iconic roles, then I think I can understand why somebody, even not just heritages in country, but even sometimes city to city, where like Bobby Hutton might be somebody. Bobby Seale should have. Fred Hampton, excuse me. Fred Hampton was somebody very significant from a Black America, but from Chicago. So people might even say, nah, it should be one of the top guys from Chicago with roots in Chicago to play that role, because if he's from like, Manhattan, or he's coming from Alabama or something like that, even that is like a different frequency or different energy. So I can understand when it's major significant historical figures. And I've even heard somebody mention this in the conversation about who should be playing what roles, that like, it had to be Denzel, because how would it have been if somebody else was playing Malcolm X? And then I stopped and scratched my head and said, but ain't Malcolm X, wasn't his mum from Grenada? She from Grenada. Is that in the film though? Like, so yeah, he's an American icon. He's a Black American icon, but Malcolm is like, he was like genetically Pan-Africanist, right? It's like by DNA, isn't it? Like, what they're gonna do when Farrakhan goes up in the great spaceship in the sky, and they're gonna tell his life story and put it in the film. Both his parents are from, his mum's from St. Kitts and his dad was from Jamaica. who should play his role then? I mean, he's a major million man. He's a major Black American activist, leader, person. It's Caribbean heritage. So how's it work then? Are we at risk of, like, you know, there's questions to be asked, no? There's questions to be asked. So the number is 07826 115543. I should read that slowly. 07826 115543. Another question is raised by one of our listeners. Why are we separating black talent based on location? That's a fair question, man. It sounds like a rhetorical question, and I like the rhetoric. I like the rhetoric. Black actors always struggle to get good roles from day one, so it's about time we get acknowledged. I think they should do a Black James Bond. There was talk of a Black James Bond, and they was talking about Idris Elba playing that, and then LBC, I think Nick Ferrari, you know, some people got upset. Some people got really, really, really upset. Yeah, they got mad with that. So I can understand, and that's a fictitious character. So, you know, yeah, people get touchy. People's, again, but it's a role of the comedian. This is where I come back to Drewski being the comic genius, because he raised some it's uncomfortable. I don't really like it. Feels a bit quirky. It does feel like me trying to dine out on my left hand, trying to eat my own self. Like, I'm arguing with other people who look like me, who, if I don't talk and I sat amongst them and that, they would just say, cool, I'm from there. But it's only when I open my mouth, that's how different I am. Or if I know how to do a good enough accent, they wouldn't even know I'm not from there. So it clearly shows that we got the same origin, right? Or this is a question for those people, and I'd say this respectfully to those Americans, those Black Americans, notice I haven't said African American, but those Black Americans who say, we have always been on this continent, we are the foundational, we are the true Native Americans, right? And we've always been here. We are not from Africa. Isn't that bizarre that people from Africa, by route of directly from Africa to Britain or through the Caribbean and then back to the Americas, can just put on an accent and you can't tell them apart? Half of them you didn't even know where they were from. Isn't that a bit weird? But they are from the motherland. But you ain't from the motherland. You got no connection with the motherland, for those who believe it that way. Isn't that a bit strange though? How that one work out? Do you know what I mean? I always wondered about that. Always make me wonder. But it's just food for thought. It's not an accusation. It's not an assassination. One thing I don't do is fight my own people. I am so fed up of us fighting ourselves. Do you know what I'm saying? There is a deeper question to be asked as well, but let me read some more from the chat. Usually, Black actors in the UK tend to go to the States to be established and succeed, right? UK filmmakers are only interested in maintaining their stereotype. Drug dealers, etc. Never about the young Black genius. I hear that one loud and clear. The roles that were given to Black people, Black Americans years ago, right? Or just to portray Black people, you know, from the exploitation movies, right? That was years ago with pimps and you know, prostitutes, and they call that the exploitation movie, although it kept Hollywood alive, but they were very demeaning roles. But people had to eat and people needed to apply their art. And so people took those roles, but they were very demeaning. And I would say the one thing that they did have that was good compared to the UK in that power dynamic for black actors in the UK, if we're comparing them, is that there was abundance of these stereotype roles. There was an abundance of these exploitation roles, right? That like the roles weren't the best, but you could go and ply your trade. But in the UK, there's not even an abundance of those type of roles around, right? And so the people have gone abroad. The people have gone abroad to apply their trade, man. They've gone abroad. Shout out to Sister Aura. Usually black actors need to go to the States to get established. Definitely. Sister Aura says, we have to create our own story, written, spoken through our own actors. Now that is black power. Let's speak to that statement there. Let's speak to that statement right there about doing our own. Because this is where, when I was watching the reaction